Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous, wonderful multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear scholars, to the study. Hello there, Julian20. Welcome. Hello there, Dr. Zadium. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And hello there, Firefly. Good evening to you as well. I hope everyone is doing well this fine evening, or morning, or afternoon, or whatever form of time you are currently existing in. Ah, Alien 20. Oh, it is a wonderful day. Oh, it is good to hear that. I personally am feeling a little weary, but I am doing just fine. Ah, well, uh, Horace is apparently planning something tomorrow, but I'm not sure what. He won't let me in on it. I think it's a secret. But I'm really, really curious. He's been darting in and out of some of these rooms as of late, and it makes me a little bit worried because usually he tells me everything. Well, almost everything. Well, about 10% of everything. Hello there, Sophia. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am glad I am your favorite librarian, and thank you so much for the subscription. Ah, it's so wonderful to have you here. Julian20. I wonder. Yes, I wonder as well. It's so unlike him. Horace, won't you? What is going on? What do you mean I'll find out tomorrow? You know as well as I do that the study is beyond time and space. So tomorrow could be today, or it could be yesterday. Wait, do we have yesterday? Or is yesterday today? I'm getting a little confused. Oh, hello there, Kintron. Welcome, welcome back. Oh, it's good to see all you wonderful scholars here. As I've mentioned before, these streams are very much for you, and it means so much to have you all here. Are you all right there, Sophia? I hope you're doing okay. Aww. Well, if not, well, I hope this stream can bring a little bit of joy into your day, or evening, or afternoon, or whatever time it is. The last time we had, there's a clock room somewhere in the study, which is full of clocks, but all of them are set at different times, so they are somewhat useless. So I really don't know what time it is otherwise. Um, anyhow, uh, as you might be guessing, today we are doing and nothing. Excuse me, I got sidetracked there for a second trying to gather my thoughts. Oh my goodness. As you are probably well aware, today we are going to be continuing our reading of The Sea Fairies by L. Frank Baum. Um, Looking back at it as the previous chapters, you might be noticing that the book is somewhat short on plot. It's very much a more about exploring than it is about telling an actual story, which I am sure some might find a little bit difficult to deal with, but I personally think it's interesting. I mean, L. Frank Baum gets to show a lot of his world building in it, which he is always excellent in. Excuse me for a moment. Thought I heard something. Mm, Maybe it's. Oh, um, dear scholars, give me 1 second. I need to check on something. Thought I heard something from one of the other rooms. I will be right back. and stay out. All right. All right. Sorry about that. Uh, well, um, apparently, I might have to start calling that one a book Kraken of all things. Um yeah. We managed to push it out, but that's a big one. That's a really big one. Oh, all right. So everything. Oh, hello there, Polly Casterline. Welcome. Oh, yes. So, let me catch my breath. Uh, Thank you, horse. Really saved my existence there for a moment. Um, all right. So as I was saying, we are going to continue reading the Sea Fairies. Um, most of the conversation do seem built around the world building. Yes, they do. It's mostly just a tour of the ocean, really. Oh, so it's good to have you all here. Let me hydrate a bit. Out of breath. Oh, not sure where that one came from. Oh my goodness, that was that was huge. So my dear scholars, are you ready to continue with our journey through the ocean? Excellent. Firefly, maybe you should check the library for hidden portals. So with the study, I don't know how they get in. Excuse me. Or where they actually come from. They're from some other plane of existence, and unfortunately, I don't know how they slip in. They don't slip in through portals. I know that. I've looked for them, but they just seem to appear. All right. So, anyhow, let us continue. Chapter 9. The Bashful Octopus. I would get a chapter like this after just what happened, didn't I? It was a lovely day, and the sea was like azure under the rays of the sun. Over the flower beds and through the gardens they swam, emerging into the open sea in a direction opposite that taken by the visitors the day before. The party consisted of but four: Queen Aquarine, Princess Clea, Trot, and Cap'n Bill. People who live upon the land know only those sea creatures which they are able to catch in nets, or upon hooks, or those which become disabled and are washed ashore, remarked the Queen, as they swam swiftly through the clear water. And those who sail in ships see only the creatures who chance to come to the surface. But in the deep ocean caverns are queer beings that no mortal has ever heard of or beheld, and some of those we are to visit. We shall also see some sea shrubs and flowering weeds, which are sure to delight you with their beauty. She's not wrong, actually. I mean, much of the sea life is those we don't see. Which I know that sentence sounds a bit odd, but still. The sights really began before they had gone very far from the palace, and a school of butterfly fish, having gorgeous colors spattered all over their broad wings, were first to delight the strangers. They swam just as butterflies fly, with a darting, jerky motion, and called a merry "Good morning" to the mermaids as they passed. "These butterfly fish are remarkably active," said the princess, "and their quick motions protect them from their enemies. We like to meet them. They are always so gay and so natured." "Why, so am I!" cried a sharp voice just beside them, and they all paused to discover what creature had spoken to them. "Take care," said Clea in a low voice. "It's an octopus." Trot looked eagerly around. A long brown arm stretched across their way in front, and another just behind them. But that did not worry her. The octopus himself came slowly sliding up to them, and proved to be well worth looking at. He wore a red coat with brass buttons, and a silk hat was flipped over one ear. His eyes were somewhat dull and watery, and he had a mustache of long hair like feelers that curled stiffly at the ends. When he tried to smile at them, he showed two rows of sharp white teeth. Interesting description of an octopus. In spite of his red coat and yellow embroidered vest, his standing collar and carefully tied cravat, the legs of the octopus were bare, and Trot noticed he used some of his legs for arms, as in one of them was held a slender cane, and in another a handkerchief. "Well, well," said the octopus, "are you all dumb? Or don't you know enough to be civil when you meet a neighbor?"
We know how to be civil to our friends," replied Trot, who did not like the way he spoke.
"Well, aren't we friends, then?" asked the octopus in an airy tone of voice.
"I think not," said the little girl. "Octopuses are horrid creatures."
"Octopi, if you please. Octopi," said the monster with a laugh.
"I don't see any pie that pleases me," replied Trot, beginning to get angry.
"Octopus means one of us. Two or more are called octopi," remarked the creature, as if correcting her speech.
"I suppose a lot of you would be a whole bakery," she said scornfully.
"Our name is Latin. It was given us by learned scientists years ago," said the octopus. "That's true enough," agreed Captain Bill. "The learned scientists named every blamed thing they come across, and generally they picked out names as nobody could understand or pronounce." "That isn't our fault, sir," said the octopus. "Indeed, it's pretty hard for us to go through life with such terrible names. Think of the poor little seahorse. He used to be a merry and cheerful fellow, but since they named him Hippocampus, he hasn't smiled once."
"Let's go," said Trot. "I don't like to associate with octopuses."
"Octopi," said the creature, again correcting her.
"You're just as horrid, whether you're pusses or pies," she declared.
"Horrid!" cried the monster in a shocked tone of voice.
"Not only horrid, but horrible," persisted the girl.
"May I ask in what way?" he inquired, and it was easy to see he was offended.
"Why, everybody knows that octopuses are just wicked and deceitful," she said. "Up on Earth, where I live, they call the Standard Oil Company an octopus, and the Coal Trust an octopus,
And here she's actually referring to what had been a political cartoon that was popular at the time for what was considered the large monopolies at the time. They would often use octopuses as a symbol of these companies, which she is referring to. I thought that'd be a nice little history fact for all of you. "Stop! Stop!" cried the monster in a pleading voice. "Do you mean to tell me that the Earth people, whom I have always respected, compare me to the Standard Oil Company?"
yes,"
said Trot positively. "That's what they do," added Cap'n Bill, nodding his grizzled head. "Oh, what a disgrace! What a deep, direful, dreadful disgrace! Moaned the octopus, drooping his head in shame, and Trot could see tears, great tears, rolling down his cheeks.
This comes of having a bad name, said the Queen gently, for she was moved by the monster's grief.
It is unjust! It is cruel and unjust! Sobbed the creature mournfully. Just because we have several long arms and take whatever we can reach, they accuse us of being oh, I cannot say. It is too shameful, too humiliating.
Come, let us go,
Said Trot again. So they left the poor octopus weeping and wiping his watery eyes with his handkerchief, and swam on their way.
I'm not a bit sorry for him,
Remarked the child.
for his legs remind me of serpents.
So they do me, agreed Cap'n Bill.
But the octopi are not very bad, said the princess, and we get along with them much better than we do with their cousins, the sea devils. Oh, are the sea devils their cousins?
Asked Trot.
Yes, yes, and they are the only creatures of the ocean, which we greatly fear,
Replied Aquareine.
I hope we shall meet none today, for we are going near to the dismal caverns where they live.
Dr. Zadium. Sea devils! Why, does that name mean something to you, my Dr. Zadium? The term sea devil was used actually for a few different kinds of fish back in the day. Especially manta rays were sometimes called sea devils. Julian 20, haha, oh yes. Dr. Zadium, yes, reminds me of a pro wrestler named Edge. Oh, interesting. So he had like a nickname called the Sea Devil or something? That's interesting. What are the Sea Devils like, ma'am? Inquired Cap'n Bill, a little uneasy.
Something like the octopus you just saw, only much larger, and of a bright scarlet color striped with black,
Answered the Queen.
They are very fierce and terrible creatures, and nearly as much dreaded by the inhabitants of the ocean as is Zog, and nearly as powerful as King Anko himself.
Dr. Zadium, he has the bug eyes of a sea devil. Kintron. Sounds like the devil's squids. Ooh,
It does.
it does sound like them.
Zog? Who is Zog?
Questioned the girl.
I haven't heard of him before now. We do not like to mention Zog's name, responded the Queen in a low voice. He is the wicked genius of the sea, and a magician of great power.
What's he like? Asked Cap'n Bill.
He is a dreadful creature, part fish, part man, part beast, and part serpent. Centuries ago they cast him off the earth into the sea, where he has caused much trouble. Once he waged a terrible war against King Anko, but the sea serpent finally conquered Zog and drove the magician into his castle, where he now stays shut up. For if ever Anko catches the monster outside of his enchanted castle, he will kill him, and Zog knows that very well.
Seems like you have your troubles down here, just as we do on top of the ground, remarked Cap'n Bill.
But I'm glad old Zog is shut up in his castle, added Trot. Is it a sea castle, like your own palaces? I cannot say, my dear, for the enchantment makes it invisible to all eyes but those of its inhabitants, replied Aquareine. No one sees Zog now, and we scarcely ever hear of him. But all the sea people know He is here, some place, and fear his power. Even in the old days, before Anko conquered him, Zog was the enemy of the mermaids, as he was of all the good and respectable sea folk. But do not worry about the magician, I beg of you, for he has not dared to do an evil deed in many, many years.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm not afraid,
Asserted Trot.
I'm glad of that, said the queen. Keep together, friends, and be careful not to separate, for here comes an army of sawfishes.
Even as Ocarine spoke, they saw a swirl and commotion in the water ahead of them, with a sound like a muffled roar fell upon their ears. Then swiftly there dashed upon them a group of great fishes, with long saws sticking out in front of their noses, armed with sharp hooked teeth all set in a row. They were larger than the swordfishes and seemed more fierce and bold. But the mermaids and Trot and Cap'n Bill quietly awaited their attack. And instead of tearing them with their saws as they expected to do, the fishes were unable to touch them at all. They tried every possible way to get at their proposed victims, but the magic circle was all powerful and turned aside the ugly saws, so our friends were not disturbed at all. Seeing this, the sawfishes soon abandoned the attempt, and with growls and roars of disappointment, swam away and were quickly out of sight. Trot had been a wee bit frightened during the attack, but now she laughed gleefully and told the queen that it seemed very nice to be protected by fairy powers. Get a drink. The water grew a darker blue as they descended into its depths, farther and farther away from the rays of the sun. Trot was surprised to find she could see so plainly through the high wall of water above her, but the sun was able to shoot its beams straight down through the transparent sea, and they seemed to penetrate to every nook and crevice of the rocky bottom. In this deeper part of the ocean, some of the fishes had a phosphorescent light of their own, and these could be seen far ahead, as if they were lanterns. The explorers met a school of Argonauts going up to the surface for a sail, and the child watched these strange creatures with much curiosity. The Argonauts live in shells, in which they are able to hide in case of the danger from prowling wolf fishes. I have to wonder what a wolf fish is. Hmm. Hmm. Be curious to see. I have to check one of my books in the study on that case. But otherwise, they crawl out and carry their shells like humps upon their backs. Then they spread their skinny sails above them and sail away under water till they come to the surface, where they float and let the currents of air carry them along the same as the currents of water had done before. Trot thought the Argonauts comical little creatures, with their big eyes and sharp noses, and to her they looked like a fleet of tiny ships. It is said that men got their first idea of boats and of how to sail them from watching these little Argonauts. A little bit of a drink there. Oh. Excuse me. Chapter 10. The Undiscovered Island. In following the fleet of Argonauts, the four explorers had risen higher in the water, and soon found that they had wandered to an open space that seemed to Trot like the flat top of a high hill. The sands were covered with a growth of weeds so gorgeously colored that one who had never peered beneath the surface of the sea would scarcely believe they were not the product of a dye shop. Every known hue seemed represented in the delicate fern-like leaves that swayed softly to and fro as the current moved them. They were not set close together, these branches of magnificent hues, but were scattered sparsely over the sandy bottom of the sea, so that while from a distance they seemed thick, a nearer view found them spread out with ample spaces of sand between them. In these sandy spaces lay the real attractiveness of the place, for here were many of those wonders of the deep that have surprised and interested people in all ages. First were the starfishes, hundreds of them it seemed, lying sleepily on the bottom, with their 5 or 6 points extended outward. They were of various colors, some rich and brilliant, others of dark brown hues. A few had wound their arms around the weeds or were creeping slowly from one place to another, in the latter case turning their points downward and using them as legs. But most of them were lying motionless, and as Trot looked down upon them, she thought they resembled stars in the sky on a bright night, except that the blue of the heavens was here replaced by the white sand, and the twinkling diamond stars by the colored starfish. Another drink. We are near an island, said the queen, and that is why so many starfishes are here, as they love to keep close to shore. Also, the little seahorses love these weeds, and to me they are more interesting than the starfish. Trot now noticed the seahorses for the first time. They were quite small, merely 2 or 3 inches high, but had funny little heads that were shaped much like the head of a horse, and bright, intelligent eyes. They had no legs, though, for their bodies ended in tails, which they twined around the stems of seaweeds to support themselves and keep the currents from carrying them away. Trot bent down close to examine one of the queer little creatures and exclaimed, "Why, the seahorses haven't any fins or anything to swim with." Okay, here goes. I have to take a drink for this voice. Give me 1 second. I have to practice this voice.
Oh, yes, we have,
Replied the seahorse in a tiny but distinct voice.
these things on the side of my head are fins.
I thought they were ears, said the girl.
So they are. Fins and ears are at the same time.
Answered the little sea animal.
Also, there are small fins on our backs. Of course, we can't swim as the mermaids do, or even as swiftly as fishes, but we manage to get around, thank you.
Don't the fishes catch and eat you? Inquired Trot curiously.
Sometimes,
Admitted the seahorse.
and there are many other living things that have a way of destroying us. But here I am, as you see, over 6 weeks old, and during that time I have escaped every danger. That isn't so bad, is it?
Phoo, said a starfish lying near.
I'm over 3 months old. You're a mere baby, seahorse. I'm not,
Cried the seahorse excitedly.
I'm full grown and may live to be as old as you are. Not if I keep on living,
Said the starfish calmly, and Trot knew he was correct in his statement. Oh, that is hard on my voice. The little girl now noticed several sea spiders creeping around, and drew back because she did not think them very pretty. They were shaped not unlike the starfishes, but had slender legs and big heads with wicked-looking eyes sticking out of them.
Oh, I don't like those things, said Trot, coming closer to her companions. You don't, eh? Said a big sea spider in a cross voice. Why do you come around here, then, scaring away my dinner, when you're not wanted? It isn't your ocean, replied Trot. No, and it isn't yours, snapped the spider. But as it's big enough for us both, I'd like you to go away. So we will, said Ocarine gently, and at once she moved towards the surface of the water. Trot and Cap'n Bill followed with Clea, and the child asked, "What island are we near?" Excuse me. "It has no name," answered the Queen, "for it is not inhabited by man, nor has it ever yet been discovered by them. Perhaps you will be the first humans to see this island, but it is a barren, rocky place, and only fit for seals and turtles." Dr. Zadium, aw, that voice. Thank you, thank you. The squeaky voices are very hard for me to do sometimes. Very hard on my interdimensional throat. "Are any of them there now?" Captain Bill inquired. "I think so. We will see." Trot was astonished to find how near they were to the top of the ocean, for they had not ascended through the water very long when suddenly her head popped out into the air, and she gave a gasp of surprise to find herself looking at the clear sky for the first time since she had started upon this adventure by rowing into Giant's Cave. She floated comfortably in the water, with her head and face just out of it, and began to look around her. Cap'n Bill was at her side, and so were the two mermaids. The day was fair, and the surface of the sea, which stretched far away as the eye could reach, rippled under a gentle breeze. They had risen almost at the edge of a small rocky inlet, high in the middle, but gradually slanting down to the water. No trees or bushes or grass grew anywhere about. Only rocks, gray and bleak, were to be seen. Trot scarcely noticed this at first, however, for the island seemed covered with groups of forms, some still and some moving, which the old sailor promptly recognized as seals. Many were lying asleep or sunning themselves. Others crept awkwardly around, using their strong fins as legs or paddles, and caring little if they disturbed the slumbers of the others. Once in a while, one of those crowded out of place would give a loud and angry bark, which awakened others, and set them to barking likewise. Baby seals were there in great numbers, and were more active and playful than their elders. Excuse me. Horace, why'd you knock that over? Oh, I'm sorry, Horace. Accidents do happen. Horace moved a bit and accidentally knocked down one of the books. Ah, that happens once in a while. Where was I? um, it was really wonderful how they could scramble around on the land, and Trot laughed more than once at their antics. Sorry. At the edge of the water lay many huge turtles, some as big around as a wagon wheel, and others much smaller in size. "The big ones are very old," said the Queen, seeing Trot's eyes fixed on the turtles. "How old?" asked the child. "Hundreds of years, I think. They live to a great age, for nothing can harm them when they withdraw their legs and heads into their thick shells. We use some of the turtles for food, but prefer the younger ones. Men also fish for turtles and eat them, but of course no men ever come to this out of the way place in the ocean, so the inhabitants of this little island know they are perfectly safe." In the center of the island rose high cliffs,
on top of which were to be seen great flocks of seagulls, some whirling in the air, while others were perched upon the points of rocks. "Where do the birds find to eat? What do the birds find to eat?" asked Cap'n Bill.
"They often feed upon seals, which die of accident or old age, and they are expert fishermen," explained Queen Aquareine. "Curiously enough, the seals also feed upon these birds, which they are often able to catch in their strong jaws when the gulls venture too near. And then the seals frequently rob the nests of eggs, of which they are very fond."
"I'd like a few I'd like a few gulls' eggs now," remarked a big seal that lay near them upon the shore. Trot had thought him sound asleep, but now he opened his eyes to blink lazily at the group in the water. The cat, I love the voices. "Oh, thank you! Thank you so much, and welcome the cat to the study. We are reading the Sea Fairies."
"Good morning," said the Queen. "Aren't you Chief Muffruff?"
"I am," answered the old seal. "And you are Aquareine, the Mermaid Queen. You see, I remember you, although you haven't been here for years. And isn't that Princess Clea? To be sure! But the other mermaids are strangers to me, especially the bald-headed one." "I'm not a mermaid," asserted Cap'n Bill. "I'm a sailor, just a visiting the mermaids."
"Our friends are earth dwellers," explained the Queen.
"That's odd," said Muffruff. "I can't remember that any earth dwellers ever came this way before. I never travel far, you see, for I'm chief of this disorderly family of seals that live on this island. On it and off it, that is." "You're a poor chief," said a big turtle lying beside the seal. "If your people are disorderly, it is your own fault." Muffruff gave a chuckling laugh. Then, with a movement quick as lightning, he pushed his head under the shell of the turtle and gave it a sudden jerk. The huge turtle was tossed up on edge and then turned flat on its back, where its short legs struggled vainly to right its overturned body. "There!" snorted the seal contemptuously. "Perhaps you'll dare insult me again in the presence of visitors, you old mud-wallower."
Seeing the plight of the turtle, several young seals came laughingly wabbling to the spot, and as they approached, the helpless creature drew in his legs and head, and closed his two shells tightly together. The seals bumped against the turtle and gave it a push that sent it sliding down the beach like a toboggan, and a minute later it splashed into the water and sank out of sight. But that was just what the creature wanted. On shore, the upset turtle was quite helpless, but the mischievous seals saved him, for as soon as he touched the water, he was able to turn and right himself, which he promptly did. Then he raised his head above the water and asked,
"Is it peace or war, Muffruff?" "Whatever you like," answered the seal indifferently.
Perhaps the turtle was angry, for it ran on shore with remarkable swiftness, uttering a shrill cry as it advanced. At once all the other turtles awoke to life, and with upraised heads joined their comrade in the rush for the seals. Most of Chief Muffruff's band scrambled hastily down the rocks and plunged into the water of the sea, without waiting for the turtles to reach them. But the chief himself was slow in escaping. It may be he was ashamed to run while the mermaids were watching, but if this was so, he made a great mistake. The turtle snapped at his fins and tail, and began biting round chunks out of them, so that Chief Muffruff screamed with pain and anger, and floundered into the water as fast as he could go.
The vengeful turtles were certainly the victors, and now held undisputed possession of the island. Julian 20, Merman. Yeah, yeah, I would say Captain Bill's a merman. Trot laughed joylessly at the incident, not feeling a bit sorry for the old seal who had foolishly begun the battle. Trot seems like she's really kind of bloodthirsty a little bit. Even the gentle queen smiled as she said, "These quarrels between the turtles and seals are very frequent, but they are soon ended. An hour from now they will all be lying asleep together, just as we found them. But we will not wait for that. Let us go." She sank slowly beneath the water again, and the others followed after her. Get another drink. When you do a lot of voices in these readings, you have to hydrate quite a bit. Hmm. Let me just adjust my seating as well. Chapter 11. Kinchon, very true. Yes, very true. Chapter 11. Zog the Terrible and his Sea Devils. "The sun must be going under a cloud," said Trot, looking ahead. They had descended far into the ocean depths again, further, the girl thought, than they had ever been before. "No," the queen answered, after a glance ahead of them. "That is a cuttlefish, and he is dyeing the sea around him with ink, so that he can hide from us. Let us turn a little to the left, for we could see nothing at all in that inky water." The cat, "Just watch out for sea fairies." Yes, indeed, yes, indeed. Although this story is full of sea fairies, so. Following her advice, they made a broad curve to the left, and at once the water began to darken in that direction too. "Why, there's another of 'em," said Cap'n Bill, as the little party came to a sudden halt. "So there is," returned the Queen, and Trot thought there was a little quiver of anxiety in her voice. "We must go far to the right to escape the ink." So they again started, this time almost at a right angle to their former course, and the little girl inquired, "How can the cuttlefish color the water so very black?" "They carry big sacks in front of them, where they conceal the ink," Princess Clea answered. "Whenever they choose, the cuttlefish are able to press out this ink, and it colors the water for a great space around them." The direction in which they were now swimming was taking them far out of their way. Aquareine did not wish to travel very far to the right, so when she thought they had gone far enough to escape the inky water, she turned to lead her party towards the left, the direction in which did wish to go. At once, another cloud of ink stained the water, and drove them to the right again. "Is anything wrong, ma'am?" asked Cap'n Bill, seeing a frown gather upon the Queen's lovely face. "I hope not," she said, "but I must warn you that these cuttlefish are the servants of the terrible sea devils, and from the way they are acting, they seem determined to drive us toward the devil caves, which I wish to avoid." This admission on the part of their powerful protector, the fairy mermaid, sent a chill to the hearts of the earth people. Neither spoke for a time. But finally Cap'n Bill asked in a timid voice, "Hadn't we better go back, ma'am?" "Yes," decided Aquareine, after a moment's thought. "I think it will be wise to retreat. The sea devils are evidently aware of our movements, and wish to annoy us. For my part, I have no fear of them, but I do not care to have you meet such creatures." But when they turned around to abandon their journey, Another inky cloud was to be seen behind them. They really had no choice but to swim in the only streak of clear water they could find, and the mermaids well knew this would lead them nearer and nearer to the caves of their enemies. But Aquarine led the way, moving very slowly, and the others followed her. In every other direction they were hemmed in by the black waters, and they did not dare to halt, because the inky fluid crept swiftly up behind them and drove them on. The queen and the princess had now become silent and grave. They swam on either side of their guests, as if to better protect them. "Don't look up," whispered Clea, pressing close to the little girl's side.
"Why not?"
asked Trot, and then she did exactly what she had been told not to do. She lifted her head and saw stretched over them a network of scrawny crimson arms, interlaced like the branches of trees in winter when the leaves had fallen and left them bare. Cap'n Bill gave a start and muttered, "Land Sykes!" for he too had gazed upward and seen the crimson network of limbs.
Are are these the sea devils?"
asked the child, more curious than frightened. "Yes, dear," replied the queen, "but I advise you to pay no attention to them. Remember, they cannot touch us." In order to avoid the threatening arms overhead, which followed them as they swam, our friends kept near to the bottom of the sea, which was here thickly covered with rough and jagged rocks. The inky water had now been left far behind, but when Trot looked over her shoulder, she shuddered to find a great crimson monster following closely after them, with a dozen long, snaky feelers stretched out as if to grab anyone that lagged behind. And there at the side of Princess Clea was another sea devil, leering silently with his cruel, bulging eyes at the pretty mermaid. Beside the queen swam still another of their enemies. Indeed, the sea devils had crept upon them and surrounded them everywhere except at the front, and Trot began to feel nervous and worried for the first time. Cap'n Bill kept mumbling queer words under his breath, for he had a way of talking to himself when anything upset him, as he would quaintly remark. Trot always knew he was disturbed or in trouble when he began to growl. The only way now open was straight ahead. They swam slowly, yet fast enough to keep a safe distance from the dreadful creatures behind them. "I'm afraid they are driving us into a trap," whispered the queen softly. "But whatever happens, do not lose courage, Earth friends. Clea and I are here to protect you, and our fairy powers are sufficient to keep you from all harm."
"Oh, I don't mind so very much," declared Trot calmly. "It's like the fairy adventures in storybooks, and I have often thought I'd like that kind of adventures, 'cause the story always turns out the right way."
I don't know what kind of fairy adventures you're talking about, Trot. I've read Grimm's fairy tales, and I can tell you they don't always end the right way. Cap'n Bill growled something just then, but the only words Trot could make out were, "Never lived to tell the tale." The cat, "Run away!" If only they could! If only they could! I don't think the Sea Devils are going to let them run away.
"Oh, pshaw, Cap'n," she said. "We may be in danger right enough, and to be honest I don't like the looks of these sea devils at all, but I'm sure it's no killing matter. for we've got the fairy circle all around us.
Excuse me. Give me 1 second. I gotta get a voice right. Ha ha! Laughed the monster beside her. We know all about the fairy circles, don't we, Meg? Ho ho! Laughed the monster on the other side. We do, Slim, my boy. We don't think much of fairy circles either.
They have foiled our enemies many times, declared the princess with much dignity.
Ha ha! Laughed one. That's why we're here now. Ho ho! Laughed the other. We've learned a trick or two, and we've got you fast this time. Excuse me. Then all the sea devils, those above and the one behind, and the two on the sides, laughed all together, and their laughter was so horrible that it made even Trot shudder. But now the queen stopped short, and the others stopped with her. I will go no farther, she said firmly, not caring if the creatures overheard her. It is evident that these monsters are trying to drive us into some secret place, and it is well known that they are in league with Zog the Terrible, whom they serve because they are as wicked as he is. We must be somewhere near the hidden castle of Zog, so I prefer to stay here rather than be driven into some place far more dangerous. As for the sea devils, they are powerless to injure us in any way. Not one of the 1,000 arms about us can possibly touch our bodies. The only reply to this defiant speech was another burst of horrible laughter, and now there suddenly appeared before them still another of the monsters, which thus completely hemmed them in. Then the creatures began interlacing their long arms, or feelers, until they formed a perfect cage around the prisoners, not an opening being left that was large enough for one of them to escape through. The mermaids and the girl and sailor man kept huddled close together, for although they might be walled in by the sea devils, their captors could not touch them because of the protecting magic circles. All at once, Trot exclaimed, "Why, we must be moving!" This was startling news, but by watching the flow of the water past them, they saw that the little girl was right. The sea devils were swimming all together, and as the cage they were in moved forward, our friends were carried with it. Queen Aquamarine had a stern look upon her beautiful face. Cap'n Bill guessed from this look that the mermaid was angry, for it seemed much like the look Trot's mother wore when they came home late to dinner. But however angry the queen might be, she was unable to help herself or her guests just now, or to escape from the guidance of the dreaded sea devils. The rest of the party had become somber and thoughtful, and in dignified silence they awaited the outcome of this strange adventure. Another drink. Tonight's chapters have a lot of voices in them. Chapter 12: The Enchanted Island. Let me adjust my seating again. All at once it grew dark around them. Neither Cap'n Bill nor Trot liked this gloom, for it made them nervous not to be able to see their enemies. "We must be near a sea cavern, if not within one," whispered Princess Clea, and even as she spoke, The network of scarlet arms parted before them, leaving an avenue for them to swim out of the cage. There was brighter water ahead, too, so the queen said, without hesitation, "Come along, dear friends, but let us clasp hands and keep close together." They obeyed her commands and swam swiftly out of their prison and into the clear water before them, glad to put a distance between themselves and the loathsome sea devils. The monsters made no attempt to follow them, but they burst into a chorus of harsh laughter, which warned our friends that they had not yet accomplished their escape. The four now found themselves in a broad, rocky passage, which was dimly lighted from some unknown source. The walls overhead, below them, and at the sides all glistened, as if made of silver, and in places were set small statues of birds, beasts, and fishes, occupying niches in the walls, and seemingly made from the same glistening material. The queen swam more slowly, now that the sea devils had been left behind, and she looked exceedingly grave and thoughtful.
Have you ever been here before?
Asked Trot.
No, dear,
Said the queen with a sigh.
and do you know where we are?
Continued the girl. I can guess, replied Aquareine. There is only one place in all the sea where such a passage as that we are in could exist without my knowledge, and that is in the hidden domains of Zog. If we are indeed in the power of that fearful magician, we must summon all our courage to resist him, or we are lost.
Is Zog more powerful than the mermaids?
Asked Trot anxiously. I do not know, for we have never before met to measure our strength, answered Aquareine. But if King Anko could defeat the magician as he surely did, then I think I shall be able to do so. I wish I was sure of it, muttered Cap'n Bill. Absolute silence reigned in the silver passage. No fish were there, not even a sea flower grew to relieve the stern grandeur of this vast corridor. Sophia's so cozy. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad you're enjoying the story. Trot began to be impressed with the fact that she was a good way from her home and mother, and she wondered if she would ever get back again to the white cottage on the cliff. Here she was, at the bottom of the great ocean, swimming through a big tunnel that had an enchanted castle at one end and a group of horrible sea devils at the other. In spite of this thought, she was not very much afraid. Although two fairy mermaids were her companions, she relied, strange to say, more upon her tried and true friend Cap'n Bill than upon her newer acquaintances to see her safely out of her present troubles. Cap'n Bill himself did not feel very confident. I don't care 2 cents what becomes o' me, he told Princess Clea in a low voice, but I'm dreadful worried about our Trot. She's too sweet and too young to be made an end in this here fashion. Clea smiled at the speech. I'm sure you will find the little girl's end a good way off, she replied. Trust to our powerful queen, and be sure she will find some means for us all to escape uninjured. The light grew brighter as they advanced, until finally they perceived a magnificent archway just ahead of them. Aquareine hesitated a moment, whether to go on or turn back. but there was no escaping the sea devils behind them, and she decided the best way out of their difficulties was to bravely face the unknown Zog and rely on her fairy powers to prevent his doing any mischief to herself or her friends. So she led the way, and together they approached the archway and passed through it. They now found themselves in a vast cavern, so great in extent that the dome overhead looked like the sky when seen from the earth. In the center of this immense sea cavern rose the towers of a splendid castle, all built of coral inlaid with silver, and having windows of clear glass. Surrounding the castle were beds of beautiful sea flowers, many being in full bloom, and these were laid out with great care in artistic designs. Goldfish and silverfish darted here and there among the foliage, and the whole scene was so pretty and peaceful that Trot began to doubt there was any danger lurking in such a lovely place. As they paused to look around them, a brilliantly colored gregfish approached and gazed them curiously with his big saucer-like eyes. "Sagurzog has got you at last," he said in a pitying tone. "How foolish you were to swim into that part of the sea where he is powerful." "The sea devils made us," explained Clea. "Well, I'm sorry for you, I'm sure," remarked the Greg, and with a flash of his tail he disappeared among the sea foliage. "Let us go to the castle," said the Queen, in a determined voice. "We may as well boldly defy our fate as to wait until Zog seeks us out." So they swam to the entrance of the castle. The doors stood wide open, and the interior seemed as well lighted as the cavern itself, although none of them could discover from whence the light came. At each side of the entrance lay a fish, such as they had never seen before. It was flat as a doormat, and seemed to cling fast to the coral floor. Upon its back were quills like those of a porcupine, all pointed and sharp. From the center of the fish arose a head shaped like a round ball, with a circle of piercing bead-like eyes set in it. These strange guardians of the entrance might be able to talk and to tell what their numerous eyes saw, yet they remained silent and watchful. Even Aquareine gazed upon them curiously, and she gave a little shudder as she did so. Inside the entrance was a domed hall, with a flight of stairs leading to an upper balcony. Around the hall were several doorways hung with curtains made of woven seaweeds. Chairs and benches stood against the wall, and these astonished the visitors, because neither stairs nor chairs seemed useful in a kingdom where every living thing was supposed to swim and have a fish's tail. In Queen Ocarine's palaces, benches for reclining were used, and stairs were wholly unnecessary. But in the palace of Zog, the furniture and fittings were much like those of a house upon earth, except that every space was here filled with water instead of air. Trot and Cap'n Bill might have imagined themselves in a handsome earthly castle. The little group paused half fearfully in the hall, yet so far there was surely nothing to be afraid of. They were wondering what to do next, when the curtains of an archway were pushed aside, and a boy entered. To Trot's astonishment, he had legs, and walked upon them naturally, and with perfect ease. He was a delicate, frail-looking little fellow, dressed in a black velvet suit with knee breeches. The bows at his throat and knees were of colored seaweed, woven into broad ribbons. His hair was yellow and baned across his forehead. His eyes were large and dark, with a pleasant, merry sparkle in them. Around his neck he wore a high ruff, but in spite of this, Trot could see that below his plump cheeks were several scarlet-edged slits that looked like the gills of fishes, for they gently opened and closed as the boy breathed in the water by which he was surrounded. These gills did not greatly mar the lad's delicate beauty, and he spread out his arms and bowed low and gracefully in greeting.
"Hello," said Trot.
"Why, I'd like to," replied the boy with a laugh,
"but being a mere slave, it isn't proper for me to hello. But it's good to see Earth people again, and I'm glad you're here."
"We're not glad," observed the girl. "We're afraid."
"You'll get over that,"
declared the boy smilingly.
"People lose a lot of time being afraid. Once I was myself afraid, but I found it was no fun, so I gave it up."
"Why were you brought here?" inquired Queen Ocarine, gently.
"I can't say, madam, being a mere slave,"
replied the boy.
"but you have reminded me of my errand. I am sent to inform you all that Zog the Forsaken, who hates all the world and is hated by all the world, commands your presence in his den."
"Do you hate Zog, too?" asked Trot.
"Oh, no,"
answered the boy.
"People lose a lot of time in hating others, and there's no fun in it at all. Zog may be hateful, but I'm not going to waste time hating him. You may do so if you like."
Wow, this is actually kind of dark. I mean, it's kind of obvious he's been absolutely broken by the experience. This is really kind of depressing. "You are a queer child," remarked the Mermaid Queen, looking at him attentively. "Will you tell us who you are?" Oh boy, I'm gonna have to try and pronounce this.
"Once I was Prince Sancho of Sacharhinolia land,"
I that is long.
"which is a sweet country, but hard to pronounce,"
he answered.
"but in this domain I have but one title and one name, and that is Slave."
Jeez. "How came you to be Zog's slave?" asked Clea.
"The funniest adventure you ever heard of,"
asserted the boy with eager pride.
"I sailed in a ship that went to pieces in a storm. All on board were drowned but me, and I came mightily near it, to tell the truth. I went down deep, deep into the sea, and at the bottom was Zog, watching the people drown. I tumbled on his head, and he grabbed me and saved me, saying I would make a useful slave. By his magic power, he made me able to live under water, as the fishes live, and he brought me to this castle and taught me to wait upon him as other slaves do."
"Isn't it a dreadful, lonely life?" asked Trot.
"No, indeed,"
said Sancho.
"we haven't any time to be lonely, and the dreadful things Zog does are very exciting and amusing, I assure you. He keeps us guessing every minute, and that makes the life here interesting. Things were getting a bit slow an hour ago, but now that you are here, I'm in hopes we will all be kept busy and amused for some time."
Yeah, this is pretty twisted. This is really kind of twisted. Are there many others in the castle beside you and Zog?
Dozens of us, perhaps hundreds. I've never counted them,
said the boy.
but Zog's the only master. All the rest of us are in the same class, so there's no jealousy among the slaves.
What is Zog like? Cap'n questioned. At this the boy laughed, and the laugh was full of mischief.
If I could tell you what Zog is like, it would take me a year,
was the reply.
but I can't tell you. Everyone has a different idea of what he's like, and soon you will see him yourself.
Are you fond of him? asked Trot.
If I said yes, I'd get a good whipping,
declared Sancho.
I am commanded to hate Zod, and being a good servant, I try to obey. If anyone dared to like Zod, I am sure he'd be instantly fed to the turtles, so I advise you not to like him.
The cat, have to go do some things. Have a great night. Ah, thank you so much for coming, the cat. Wonderful to have you here at the reading stream. Take care. Oh, we won't, promised Trot. Fun story so far. I'm so glad to hear that. It's an interesting story. Yeah, my voice.
But we're keeping the master waiting, and that is also a dangerous thing to do,
continued the boy.
If we don't hurry up, Zog will begin to smile, and when he smiles, there is trouble brewing.
The queen sighed. Lead the way, Sancho, she said. We will follow. The boy bowed again, and going to an archway, held aside the curtains for them. They first swam into a small anteroom, which led into a long corridor, at the end of which was another curtained arch. Through this, Sancho also guided them, and now they found themselves in a cleverly constructed maze. Every few feet were twists and turns, and sharp corners, and sometimes the passage would be wide, and again so narrow that they could just squeeze through in single file. Seems like we're getting farther into the trap, growled Cap'n Bill. We couldn't find our way out here to save our lives. Oh, yes, we could, replied Clea, who was just behind him. Such a maze may indeed puzzle you, but the Queen or I could lead you safely through it again. I assure you, Zog is not so clever as he thinks himself. The sailor, however, found the maze very bewildering, and so did Trot. Passages ran in every direction, crossing and recrossing, and it seemed wonderful that the boy Sancho knew just which way to go. But he never hesitated an instant. Trot looked carefully to see if there were any marks to guide him. But every wall was of plain polished marble, and every turning looked just like all the others. Suddenly, Sancho stopped short. They were now in a broader passage, but as they gathered around their conductor, they found further advance blocked. Solid walls faced them, and here the corridor seemed to end. Enter! cried a clear voice.
But we can't. Swim straight ahead,
whispered the boy in soft tones.
There is no real barrier before you. Your eyes are merely deceived by magic.
Ah, I understand, said Ocarine, nodding her pretty head. And then she took Mary's hand and swam boldly forward, while Cap'n Bill followed holding the hand of Clea. Oh, hello there, Jewelry Jelly. Welcome. Thank you for the raid. We're just finishing up this chapter, and I think actually we're almost done for the evening. But we'll have a little talk after here. Ah, I understand, said Ocarine, nodding her pretty head. And then she took Mary's hand and swam boldly forward, while Cap'n Bill followed, holding the hand of Clea. And behold, the marble wall melted away before them, and they found themselves in a chamber more splendid than even the fairy mermaids had ever seen before. Joey Jelly, hi there. Lemon Cake had the most anticlimactic ending ever, so we just switched to Splatoon that I was sucking, so we ended it. Aww, I'm sorry to hear that. Aww. Also, yes, Sophia Raid. We're gonna stop with the reading at this point, but we'll have a little discussion, and I'll move us to our little chat area for the rest of our evening. If I can find it. Ah, there we are. Ah, hello there, hello there, hello there. So, Julian20, wonderful voice work. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. These 4 chapters, a lot of varied voices, a lot of varied characters. I do like that L. Frank Baum gives each fish and each sea life voice such a unique tone in writing. Sophia, I'm so cozy. Aw, good to hear that. Yeah, I had forgotten that Devilfish was also a name they gave to, I believe, giant octopus. Um, which were never that big, but I've never heard of a crimson or black octopus, so I'm guessing he made that up for it. Can't imagine what fish Julian20 hugs to Sophie. Aww. Of course, of course. And many books as well. Um, the one I want to really kind of discuss about is Sacho. Oh boy, is that twisted. I mean, I'm guessing Frank Baum's doing this, but he's really writing poor Sacho as really being broken by his experience. I mean, he's talking about things like he keeps repeating how they can't waste time on things. And when I'm reading it, I'm not sure if you, dear scholars, are getting the same sense as when you're listening to me read it. I just imagine him with this frozen smile on his face, um, this absolute broken child by the experience. He's probably been through so much because of Zog that he can't do anything except keep that smile on his face and keep talking about how he can't waste time doing anything. It's really, really dark. But I have to applaud Frank Baum for not making it really obvious. It's coming in between the lines the way he's talking about serving Zog. Next chapter we actually get to meet Zog, which will be interesting. I had heard that Zog was one of the more nasty villains that L. Frank Baum came up with, which is saying something. I mean, he's created the Wicked Witch of the West, which was not to be not to insult any of the Wizard of Oz fans. I am a Wizard of Oz fan. I like the books and the movies quite good. Um, Wicked Witch of the West is very much a one-note villain. I mean, she's mostly there as a MacGuffin, as a thing just for the heroes to get past, which I always found kind of funny because whenever they do Wizard of Oz adaptations or sequels or anything like that, they always tend to go back to the Wicked Witch of the West as the villain or some Wicked Witch of that nature. But I think that's mostly because of the popularity of the live action movie. And the other noteworthy villain, of course, is the. I just sprayed water on myself. Um, Excuse me. Horace, will you get a towel? Thank you. The other noteworthy villain, of course, that Frank Baum created was the Gnome King, which is either spelled Jnome or Nome, depending on who wrote for him. But he's always been kind of an interesting villain because he's always got a kind of a streak of you hate him, but you also have to be kind of impressed by him, by everything he does. Um, I won't spoil anything further with him because I know Sophia is reading the Oz books. If you haven't been to any of her Oz book reading streams, they're wonderful. Check them out. So I don't want to spoil anything ahead of time when it comes to the Gnome King. But as a villain, yeah, he's always been kind of interesting because he is that sort of in between. You really, 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 really hate him for what he does, but you also kind of have to go, yeah, that's kind of an impressive piece of work. Um, but Zog, from what I've understood and what we're gonna get to next week with the next few chapters, he is one of the more despicable villains. And if he's done to others what he did to poor how do you pronounce it? Sacho, I think? Sacho, yeah, I already hate the guy. It's very hard for me to hate anyone. Except Wogglebug. I will forever hate the Wogglebug. Stupid pun spouting giant insect. Um, anyway, yes. You laugh. You laugh. Yes. Sophia Wogglebug's emergency. No, 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 no Wogglebug. No Wogglebug. He is such an irritant. Ah, why do you think Ozma shoved him into his university? She wanted him out of her face. Keep him busy annoying other people. The yeah, this tonight's chapters have been pretty interesting. And we're actually finally getting to a bit of plot after all the exploring the ocean thing. What did you scholars think of tonight's chapters? I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to give your 2 cents on the matter of what we've read tonight, or today, or this afternoon, or whatever it is. Unit 20, I enjoyed it. Oh, good, good. Yeah, it was these chapters were really interesting, and yeah, we're starting to get into which is it's kind of interesting that they choose now to get into the actual plot, where it's like the last, I don't know, quarter of the book. How many chapters are there? There's 22 chapters, and we are entering chapter. Oh, we have got a lot of chapters to go through. Dr. Zadium. Well, they have to lull you into a false sense of security. That is true. That is true. Unit 20, the beginning was kind of dry. Oh, I don't know about that. I think the beginning was pretty okay. Though, yeah, I can see why it would be dry. It really is kind of a travelogue. Sophia, did you know deer can jump higher than the average house? Horace, we don't have any deer in this study, do we? Okay, if we do, please, please, please keep them out of my personal study. I, uh, I don't need anything jumping over my head. Sophia, it's because of their strong hind legs and the fact that the average house can't jump. Despite the fact that you all drive me absolutely insane sometimes, I do love you, my dear scholars. Even though you're giving me a headache sometimes. The stare, the look. You're getting the Matsu stare. The Matsu stare. Yeah. Unit 20. Are you tired? Yes, I'm actually quite weary. So actually we probably should close out for now. Oh, I should talk about next week. Next week we will be doing we will be finally Dr. Zadian. This needs to be a meme. I am not gonna stop you if you need to make it a meme. I will sternly stare at you, but I won't stop you. Um, so next week, we will be finishing on Tuesday with hopes. We'll be finishing Return to Monkey Island. Finally finish that game. And then afterwards, on Thursday, we will be reading 4 more chapters of the Sea Fairies. And hopefully we'll be getting into some more plot for it. Kinshon, I've gotten the stare a few times. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. For good reason. For good reason. Now then, let's see. Pull up and see if there's anyone we can raid tonight. Not sure if is there anyone we can raid. Not really seeing any. Oh, Eodis is doing Risk of Rain. Never heard of Risk of Rain. Anyone heard of Risk of Rain? Thank you, Sophia. Thank you. I am not sure if I should scold you or be impressed. Oh, oh, all right. Well, let's check out Eotitus. Eo. I'll just say Eo. I'm terrible with names. That's what you get for being as old as I am. Apparently tomorrow I will be a little bit more older, as Horace likes to remind me. Mm. All right, so we will check out Eo tonight. For now, though, my dear scholars, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Bye bye.